Cracking. We good on the microphone? Can you believe I'm actually turning on a microphone? Not like you guys can't hear me or anything like that. But what they're doing today, they're actually recording this, and so I need to make sure that we've got some gain that we can pick up. Let me just click this on, get this in gear, make sure my technology is working, and we can get started. All right. I'm really glad you guys are here today. What we're going to be talking about is something that I think is probably near and dear to a lot of folks' hearts. We were kind of chatting before we got going here, and some of you are really kind of coming up on graduation, right? And that's really kind of an exciting time. And so we're going to talk about what is really the next big step in this process. I'm going to take this off because it's dangling on my microphone. There we go. And then it's not going to make those kind of noises, okay? Which is really the career search. Let me introduce myself, though. My name is Jeff Butterfield. And my friends call me Jeff, okay? And I'm from a little school called Western Kentucky University, okay? And just so that you can kind of get a mental image of where that is, if you figure out where Nashville, Tennessee is, I'm just about an hour north. We're just sort of a northerly suburb. Now, I was out here and I said, oh yeah, I'm from Kentucky, and some people said, Jeff, you've got a really funny accent for somebody from Kentucky, right? When you think Kentucky, you're probably thinking a different kind of a deal. Well, the reality is, and this is why I'm so pleased to be here today, I'm from San Diego. I'm one of you. I actually grew up here, went to school here. I'm a graduate of Crawford High School. My parents' home is just above Patrick Henry High School. So you know, if you go out Interstate 8 and get off on College, I live right out there. That's where I grew up. And I've taken classes at Mesa College, San Diego State University, and Miramar College. I haven't been to City. A lot of you guys are at City, but it was just too far of a drive for me to get there. But it's just absolutely great to be back in my hometown talking with people who I dearly love, which are students, people in this educational pursuit that we're in. So tell you what, how many of you guys are going to be graduating maybe in the spring, summer, or any time in 2013? Anybody? Kind of a hesitant maybe if you pass? How about the rest of you? How far out are we from graduation?
Only a semester, but then I'm going to switch my major.
Okay, so you've still got some stuff going on. Okay, but we've got some time? Good, because a lot of the things that we're going to talk about are things that we sort of need to be putting into place as we approach graduation. If you were graduating next week, you know, a lot of the things we're going to be talking about are going to kind of creep up on you too fast. So that's great. Let's talk about it. But I'd like to share with you, if I could, some of the realities that college graduates are facing. And in fact, I've got some good news and I've got some bad news, okay? First of all, here's the good news. Ready? It's not 2008, it's not 2009, and it's not 2010. Now think about those years for just a second. 2008, 2009, 2010. What do we kind of refer to those as economically? The Great Recession, right, absolutely. Do you guys kind of remember those times? They weren't too terribly long ago. And what happened to the job market during that period of time? Particularly, folks, in the state of California. What happened? It really tanked, didn't it? We saw unemployment go up dramatically. And for new college graduates during that period of time, what was the scene like? It was pretty rough. I remember, man, for several years, my graduates, when they were coming out, were really in a jam. And so thankfully now the economy is picking up. Stock market obviously is stronger. Businesses are then starting to expand. And thankfully now, employment opportunities are on the mend. But in spite of that, there are still some challenges that we face. Statisticians and researchers tell us, for example, that 85% of students that graduate from college this spring will have to move back in with mom and dad. Oh, and that's kind of a depressing thought, right? And some of you are as old as I am. The thought if I had to move back with mom and dad, that would really be a bummer. All right, but that's just a necessity. All right, nice that we have that. 50% of the students who graduate this spring, like May, by this time next year, right, fast forward 9 months, will still be either unemployed or severely underemployed. Now, when they use the term underemployed, what are we really talking about? What does it mean to be underemployed? Okay, give me an example. You got a degree in technology, but you're working at...
You got a master's in math and you're attending bar.
There you go, you're a bartender or something like that. And there's a lot of that kind of thing going on. Oh, and you know what? unemployment's still high, not as high as it used to be. In January, the number was about 7.9%, and the government just released figures about a week ago. It's actually dropped down to 7.7%. It's moving in the right direction. But economists tell us that if we have an unemployment rate higher than about 5%, that still means there's more people looking for work than there are jobs available. Oh, Jeff, why did you come out from Kentucky to tell us that? That's depressing. Now, you don't really think I would end this little segue on a bad note. Actually, in fact, I've got good news. A lot of the statistics that you guys will see and read, and these are the kind of statistics that you're seeing, really are describing college students in general. But as we were going around and sort of introducing ourselves, most of you are majoring in what we would call career-focused fields. All right? We would be having a different discussion if you were majoring in theater or dance or humanities or philosophy or something. But for students who are majoring in the computing fields, their rate of unemployment upon graduation is much lower. In fact, you'll notice it's generally below that 5% threshold. Short answer, you guys are in a great field at the right time. Okay? Now, that being said, doesn't mean that it's all easy. The last 5 years have had a significant impact on how employers staff vacant positions and opportunities. And even if you're majoring in computers, you still have to jump through a lot of hoops that maybe you wouldn't have had to jump through 10 years ago to find those kind of positions that you're looking for. All right, the market has really changed. It's a result of the economy and what's gone on in the economy during the last 5 years. It's a function of technology. It's a function of the shift in a lot of things in our economy and our society. And so what I'd like to do today is to share with you some ideas about how to simplify this task. What we have to do when we graduate and we're ready to hit the market is to better connect with the person who's sitting behind the desk there. This is the person I call the hiring manager, the person that makes the decisions about whether or not I'm going to hire you or you or you. Okay? And there's a lot of advice out there swirling around, and most of it's really terrible. Okay? There's a lot of what I call conventional advice. You read about it in books, job shopping books, and your teachers have probably shared it with you. But here's the problem. It's kind of old and out of date. And so what we're going to talk about today are some of the new realities of the job market and how we can simplify this process. In fact, all I really have to share with you today is one secret. It's a secret that most people who come out on the job market really don't think about, don't really put into practice, and as a result they struggle, and they often don't reach the kind of success they'd like to have. Now, who here would like to know what this secret is? Because we really want to just cut, absolutely. Okay, all right, I'll tell you. But before I do, I need to kind of preface it. You knew there was going to be a catch, didn't you? Okay? To understand my secret, you need to understand what's going through the mind of that hiring manager that you need to sell yourself to. Okay? So let me show you a picture here. This is Karen. Karen is a student who's graduating in May, and she's a really good student. Studies hard, always attends class, always on time to class, by the way. Very good personality, good communication skills. She just got done with an interview. She's interviewing at a company that she's really excited about, and you notice that she's happy, and the reason that she's happy is she thinks the interview went well. She's got a big smile on her face, okay? But guess what? The interviewer, the manager, still has about 5 more people. They're interviewing 6 people for the job. All right, she was the first, so that went well. Do you want to see what her competition looks like? What the other people in the interview pool look like? Well, this is applicant 1. Then at 10 o'clock, he's going to talk to applicant 2. Then candidate number 3. Candidate number 4. Lunch. Then after lunch, candidate number 5. And candidate number 6. Now, you're laughing at me, and I know what he's thinking. Jeff screwed up. Jeff screwed up. He got the wrong picture, and he just kept putting the same picture over and over again. But this is something that you need to understand and take to heart. In the eyes of a hiring manager, a brand new college graduate looks awfully similar to who? All the other new college graduates, particularly those that don't have a lot of work experience and so forth. What? No, that can't be. I'm a special, unique individual, right? You believe that? I want to believe that. My mama told me that I'm like a special snowflake. There's no 2 like me in the entire world. And I believe that, I honor that, and I respect that. But guess what? In the eyes of the hiring manager, we all look surprisingly similar. And because of that, that's often why we have a difficult time finding the kind of career success we want when we come out on the market. Good morning, come on in. So let me just show you what the secret is. Okay, ready? Everyone eyes on the screen? 1, 2, 3. Okay, a couple chuckles. Which chicken did you notice? The black one. But all the other chickens are special, unique little snowflakes too, aren't they? You didn't even see them. You can see there's a whole bunch of them there, but they almost blend together, don't they? And you're thinking, oh, what's he showing us this for? What, folks, is the secret? You have to stand out from the crowd. You have to stand out from the crowd. I'm going to repeat that because that is so important. If there's a lesson that I can really emphasize to you, while you're in school, and most of you, it sounds like you still have time, need to be doing things, thinking about positioning yourself so that you stand out from the crowd. The reality, though, folks, is, and I know I've got a few people here who are a little older, you know, a lot of the conventional job hunting advice is conformist. They want you to conform and look like everybody else. And so we're going to talk about some nonconformist kinds of things today that hopefully will help you. Now, I'm going to just share some ideas, some tips, some thoughts, and some ideas, but if I was to come up with a model and kind of codify them into a few basic areas, there's going to be really 3 things we're going to talk about. Number 1, we're going to talk about how to identify job opportunities. Keep this in mind. The job you eventually get will be no bigger than the pool of places that you apply to in the first place. The better job you do identifying opportunities, the better off it's going to be when you finally graduate, okay, and get a job. That make sense? Number 2, remember that job hunting is inherently a very human experience. And we're communicating, and we're trying to communicate with that particular hiring manager. So we're going to talk about ways that we can communicate with them effectively, and some very powerful secrets I want to share with you about that. And the number 3, kind of a persistent idea throughout all of this, is that you should think unconventionally. Now, when I say think unconventionally, I don't want you to do some of those goofy things that you hear about, like print your resume on hot pink paper and spray it with perfume before you know, I've heard stories like this. There are certain things that are just dumb, right? There are certain acceptable norms in the professional world, and I'm not suggesting that we violate any of those, but that we think outside the box. Okay, so let's dive into it. What's this guy here doing? Fishing? Where's his fishing pole? That seems a little weird. But yeah, you're right, he's fishing. What's he using to fish? A net, what we call a cast net, right? There's poles, but you can use a cast net. Actually, where I'm living in the South right now, we use cast nets quite a bit. I don't see them as much in San Diego, but I throw a 6-foot diameter cast net. What we do, we're not actually trying to catch big fish. Generally, we're catching little bait fish with it. So you throw the net out, and it's tricky to throw, but you throw it out, and it spreads open, hits the water, and then sinks, and any fish that's down below, it catches. Okay, well, let's say I'm out throwing this thing. Is anyone in here a fisherman, by the way? Who fishes? Anybody? I'm going to ask you a question. Let's say that this was a lake, a bay, a harbor, and let's just say for just giggles that there are 10,000 fish out there that day. Are those 10,000 fish equally distributed throughout that entire lake? No. In fact, they've done a lot of research, and they've found that in a body of water, 95+% of the fish will congregate in less than 5% of the space in the lake. And so a lot of the secret of fishing is knowing where to fish. But let's say I'm tossing my net, my 6-foot net, and I'm just not getting anything. Have you guys heard the old conventional advice? Cast a wider net. That's an old expression. So I say, oh, the 6-foot net's just not working. I'm not getting any fish. So I run to the store and I get a 10-foot net. A little trickier to throw, but now I've gone from a 6-foot net to a 10-foot net, and I'm still standing at the pier and I'm throwing it out. How many of you think I'm going to radically improve my odds fishing following the traditional advice? I'm not. I'm not. Casting a wider net isn't necessarily it. I have to figure out creatively how to find where the fish are. And boy, let me tell you, in the South where I come from, they spend a lot of money on that. They've got those big funny boats that you see on TV with radar and depth sounders and all this stuff looking for fish. And they spend thousands of dollars because that's so important. So what we're going to do is we're going to use tools to try to help us find fish. Now what are these up here? You guys recognize these? There's a funny looking icon there and the name, dice, and what are those? They're job boards. Good, yeah, we call them job boards. The one that's a green is which one? Monster.com, Dice.com, and CareerBuilder.com. These are the big 3 job boards out there for people in our field. And let me tell you a little secret. I've got a whole bunch of students, right, who when they graduate are absolutely convinced that this is how they're going to find a job. And how cool is that? They're going to lay around in their jammies and their bunny slippers, and they're just going to let their fingers do the walking, and they're going to find that career they've always wanted. You guys believe that? Okay. A lot of people really do think this. There's a very strong lure. The problem is that these boards have become largely saturated. Okay? 10 years ago, when they were new, these were wonderful. I had a lot of students who had great success posting stuff on these job boards. But just like the chickens have all discovered these kind of things. Okay? And so I wanted to share with you a little bit of advice about these. Number one, I don't suggest that you completely ignore them. Here's Jeff's advice on job boards. One day, spend one day, full day, applying to all of these and any others that relate to your field. Do a really good job. Fill out your profile, get your resume on there, and in particular, set yourself up so that these sites email you job notifications that match your qualifications and where you're looking geographically. And then forget it. Don't spend any more time on them, okay? It's time not well spent. Now, I'm going to run down a rat hole. Hopefully we don't run out of time. Give you a little tip. If one of these announcements comes to you via email and it looks like something that you're interested in, apply for it that day. A big mistake that the chickens make is that they'll let them pile up and then say, well, on Sunday afternoon when I've got some time, I'll fill out applications and so forth. Research from these sites shows that almost 80% of successful applicants who apply to job boards get the job because they applied within the first 24 hours of it being posted. The first 24 hours are magical. I want all of you, if you use this technique, to be in there in that first 24 to 36 hours. Okay? But instead of these are so year 2000, how many of you have considered maybe using this? Craigslist. Craigslist? What kind of a site is what's Craigslist replacing? They've disenfranchised a big industry here, by the way. It's the newspapers, and particularly what part of the newspapers? The want ads. Yeah, I remember when I was a kid, way back then, want ads used to be huge. Craigslist has just absolutely killed them. Do companies post? I thought this was like garage sales and puppies and stuff like that. Do they post jobs on Craigslist? Absolutely they do. Let me tell you what, when I was finishing up college, I was an electrical engineer in a past life. You know how I found my jobs? The Sunday San Diego Union Tribune. Okay, San Diego Union Tribune. They used to have a big insert for the classifieds just for jobs. They probably don't much anymore. And I mean, every job was in the San Diego Union Tribune. And I would just apply for them. This is now the new classified ads. And the thing I like about Craigslist is, first of all, the chickens haven't figured it out. Number two, Craigslist has a much more local focus. It's jobs that are here, looking to hire people here. It's often the small to medium-sized companies, which I think are a better opportunity for a lot of us. Okay? A lot of the things on the job board are big national types of postings. And these people are actually hiring. They don't post here just as a matter of habit. So I would recommend that a regular part of your job hunting routine, post on the job boards, but get up early and while you're having a cup of coffee, peruse things like Craigslist, right? The kind of non-traditional, unconventional sources. And you're going to find some very interesting opportunities. Well, some students say, well, Jeff, okay, the whole job board thing, I get that, but this is like the 21st century, and everybody's on Facebook. How many people tell you like the whole world's going to be run by Facebook here within, a matter of a year or two? I hear a lot of that, but I'm not so sure. These are what they call social media sites. And not to say that they don't have any value on the job market, but emphasize social. They're really much more social than they are professional. I've got several of my folks back in Kentucky who still believe they'll probably find a job on Facebook, and I'll be interested to see if they're successful or not. My guess is probably not. So instead of thinking that Facebook or Twitter or Google Plus is going to be your salvation, how about this site here? Okay, honest show of hands. How many of you, and listen to the question first, have a LinkedIn account that you actively work on, participate, and manage? Can I see a show of hands? 2, 2.5, 3. Okay. Guess what, folks? If you don't have your hand up, you've got a homework assignment. They've described LinkedIn as Facebook for grown-ups, right? Question?
I'm from Cengage Company, and we do a ton of networking on
That's it.
LinkedIn. It's our number one
That's
way
it.
to get
Amen.
people.
Okay? And I like the word she used. If you were listening, okay? This isn't so much a social media site as much as it is a business networking site. And you hear about the value of networking in the job search, but people don't know how to create a network. This is it, okay? So 2 suggestions or 2 thoughts that I want to share with you about LinkedIn. First of all, number 1, you all have a homework assignment. If your hand didn't go up, you need to get in the game, all right? But this isn't Facebook. As you're out there, understand that people on LinkedIn would like to network with others who are in the field, in the industry, or in the company. They would like to network with you. Okay? So don't say, wow, I don't know them, they're not my friend, right? On Facebook, right? It's kind of creepy if someone wants to friend you and you don't know who they are. On LinkedIn, that's perfectly acceptable. So think of it a little differently than the social media sites. Rule number 2, don't be a pest. This is very, very important. Okay? So let's say you're interested in, when I was working in San Diego, I worked in the medical devices, medical manufacturing industry, right? So I go out and I find a vice president on LinkedIn at a big medical manufacturing company, and I reach out to connect with him or her. Okay, great. They say fine. A pest then immediately says, my name is Jeff Butterfield, and I want to work for your company. Will you hire me? You can see students doing that, can't you? That's being a pest. Never be a pest. What would the person do to me if I did that? I'm gone. All right? Have a couple polite, humble, respectable kind of communications. And then instead of, I want a job, hire me, hire me, hire me, what you could say is, hi, my name is Jeff Butterfield. I am really interested in your industry. And I would like to work in the medical devices manufacturing business. What kind of advice would you give to a student who's coming out in IT and would like to break into that field? Do you see the difference? And a lot of people like to help students who are coming out and who have an interest in their industry. So never be a pest. Okay? Here's a picture I took about 6 months ago. What do you think that's a picture of? What kind? Yeah, it's a college job fair. Do they have those here in San Diego? I'd be willing to bet they do. They probably have them. The community colleges probably have them. I'll bet the 4-year schools, whatever. And so this one was held down in Nashville last fall. Okay? And a lot of students think, that's where I'm going to go get a job. Couple of observations. Number 1, it's kind of an aside. There is only one student in this picture who is properly dressed for the occasion. And this really bothers me, but this is a growing problem. See this gentleman right here? What is he wearing? A suit and tie. What else do we see? Polo shirt, sleeveless t-shirt, polo shirt. Got a student up here who's wearing an Oxford, but it's untucked over his butt. Really? Polo shirt, shorts, etc. Folks, what is the proper uniform for the professional job search that you're getting ready to undertake? Business conservative. For men, that's a suit and tie, or at the very least, a sport coat and tie. For women, it's a suit, either slacks or skirt. Okay, either one. Now, some students say, oh man, that's way too expensive. How much do good men's suits cost? A lot. I don't have time to go into it, but if that's a concern that you've got, stay around and talk to me afterward, and I'll share my secrets for how to take care of that, okay? Because it's really important, and you're going to need to have the right kind of wardrobe as you move from student to professional life, okay? The other thing that you're going to notice is, and this again is just advice, these I certainly suggest that you attend, but don't put all your eggs in these baskets, okay? I've worked for career services offices before. I go to these every year in my region. And one of the things I'm noticing now is that a lot of the jobs that you'll find here are what we call direct commission sales jobs, right? Who's this? American Income Life? What are they hiring, folks? Salespeople. Okay? And if that's what you want to do, that's great. But a lot of people go and they say, well, it's just like a lot of insurance companies and real estate agencies and different things like that. If that's what you want to do, great. But understand that there's a lot of those. You'll find a lot of military recruiters will be there, a lot of your state job agencies. This is the Tennessee Career Center booth, etc. You need to look for the gems or the nuggets when you go. They'll be there, but you need to focus. Here's just a tip, and I'm going to probably run over if I give you all these tips. Here's Jeff's tip. How old is this representative here? 28. Good. All right, 25 to 28. All right. When you see a booth and they've got the 25 to 28-year-olds staffing it, are they really serious about hiring? No. They're there as a courtesy. When they've got older, more mature people there, what are they there for? They're there to hire. That's kind of my tip. Okay? A lot of them will just show up as a matter of habit or as a matter of courtesy. And if you see somebody there, and again, no disrespect to 25-year-olds, but when they send the 25-year-old, it's a human resources clerk who's just really there passing stuff out. Okay? Here's my tip. Think unconventionally. What's this a picture of? Looks kind of similar, but not really the same. What is this? A trade show or a convention. Folks, this is some serious magic for job hunters. Trade shows are held in just about every industry you can imagine, and it's where the real movers and shakers get together to demonstrate their wares. You're not going to see the human resource clerk staffing it. The actual real managers are there, and you can get right toe-to-toe with them. Okay? Now, when I was growing up in San Diego, we didn't have a lot of these here. Back in the day, there were two big walls that shielded San Diego. One was the Anaheim Convention Center to the north, which was near Disneyland. They were huge. And then we had Las Vegas to the east. And everybody has their trade shows in Vegas. But think now, fast forward, San Diego has really gotten into the business in a big way. We've built a beautiful convention center here, totally transformed downtown. Blows me away to see downtown after all these years. And there's a lot of these being held here in San Diego. The fact that I'm here is because of a trade show, if you think about it, okay? And you can actually walk around and talk to these people directly. Very, very powerful. I had great success when I came out on the job market doing this. Now, how do you first of all discover these? Very, very simple. You go online, there's probably a San Diego Visitors and Convention Bureau website, and they'll list all the ones that are coming. Hot tip, don't look for the IBM sales show or the Microsoft sales show or whatever. Remember, 85% of the jobs that need you and you and you are in non-technical fields. So use a real open mind as far as the industries that you want to go to. And very often you can just send a note to the meeting promoters and they'll send you a free pass for these. Sir?
Just as a point of interest for
Please.
people here that may be going to trade shows.
Yeah.
I go to probably 2 or 3 trade shows a month.
Yes.
And I just came back from New Orleans, a very large medical show there. It's called HIMSS. But a student or a person looking for work, if they were to go on the first day or the first day and a half, they'll find presidents and CEOs of companies.
Yep.
That are staffing their big giant booth that they just set up, that they're spending $400,000 or $500,000 on setup.
Yep.
You can avoid 10 by 10s because that's usually not the right place to hit. But but you can though too. So anyway, first day and a half is your best day.
Absolutely. And in fact, you've worked these before. If you go outside, this is at some sports arena stuff where they're selling coffee and things like that, you'll see people hunched over a table. Half the time those are interviews going on. This is where a lot of companies find technical support, sales people, different things like that. And I found a lot of engineering types of opportunities here. Now, if you're going to go to these, you need to add another tool to your tool belt, okay? And you need to develop one of these. What do we call these? An elevator speech. Okay, an elevator speech is a 30 to 60-second sales pitch that you can give at the drop of a hat if you bump into somebody. The reason they call it the elevators, let's say you got on the elevator somewhere and the vice president of the division you want to work for gets on the elevator as well and you're both going up to the top. You've got that person captive for about 30 to 60 seconds. And what would you tell them to try and pique their interest to when you get out of the elevator, they give you their business card and say, hey, give me a call. That's an elevator speech. Now, I'm not going to ask anybody to give an elevator speech, but just a show of hands. If I were to ask, how many of you could stand and deliver an elevator speech right now? I've got 1, 2 maybe, right? This is another tool you need to prepare, and most students don't. Why? Because it's tricky. If we have time at the end, ask me. I will teach you my secret for preparing an elevator speech. My secret makes it so easy, and if we've got time, I'd like to share it. But we need to move on, but you need to develop this. So if I was going around to that trade show, elevator speech, elevator speech, elevator speech, okay, this is my sales pitch, all right? I've got to develop that tool. Okay, question for you. I've got a couple of websites up here. One of them is one of those job board sites. This is Jobster. There are a lot of them out there. And this one over here is what they call a people search site. There's a lot of those on the internet as well. If I was looking for a job, which of those two do you think would be more valuable to me? People search? You're old enough you can smell a trick question about a mile away, can't you, sir? You know I'm hustling you. What do most of my students think? The job board. The people search is going to be far more valuable to you. Again, remember we said that this whole job search thing is a very human business, and you need to be able to communicate effectively with that key decision maker. But the trick is, who is the decision maker? Well, I'll tell you what. Here's a rule I want to share with you. If you take away nothing else from the time we spend together, please let this be it. Okay, this is going to be a rule of success for you. Don't make the conventional mistake of seeing a job opportunity and just sending a resume. And then you see another job opportunity and you just send a resume. What are your chances of success when you just blindly send resumes? Horrible. In fact, they're worse now than they were about 5 years ago. You're really almost wasting your money. Here's the rule of success, people. Make contact before you send the resume. Now, that can be as simple as just an email. You don't have to show up, live in somebody's office. But what you're trying to do is to pre-sensitize that hiring manager so that when your resume does come in, they're like, oh yeah, I've heard from so-and-so. And then that resume will go into the short pile for further consideration. That's what you want. If you're just one of the hundreds, you're just one of the chickens. And that's not where you want to be. Now, here's the difference in the advice. Again, the advice that I had, they've been giving this advice for years. How do you find out who the hiring manager is? Well, let me tell you what I was taught when I was a student. Call the front desk. Hi, this is Jeff Butterfield. I want to work for your company. Could you please give me the name and the telephone number of the vice president that might be hiring for people like me? How's that going to go? Not really well. And so then they tried to teach us these little tricks like, well, here's how to lie to get your way around the front desk and so forth. That doesn't work. And in fact, a lot of times now you call today, you don't even get a human being. Right? So those old techniques like we're talking about are done and gone. So let me teach you how to do this. Okay? Let's say that this is the person who's going to hire us. He looks like a friendly sort, doesn't he? He's the, we'll say he's the computer manager at Acme Widgets. And his name is Bob. Okay? And I want to send just a sensitization email to Bob, letting him know that I'm interested in the company and that my resume is coming through. How do I find Bob's email address? That's true. Well, I could call, but are they going to give me his email address? Yeah, I want the email address for the vice president of IT. They would fire the receptionist if she gave it to me. That's the standard advice, but it doesn't work. What I need to do is figure out his email address. First of all, in an email address, there's two parts. There's the name and the domain name. How do I find the domain name for Acme Widgets? Just Google. Go to the website. acmewidgets.com. Good. By the way, what's the email domain name going to be now? acmewidgets.com. It's exactly the same as the web address. So now I know the domain name. What I need to do now is to crack the code and see how they do email names. For example, is it Jeff.Butterfield at Acme Widget? Is it J_Butterfield at Acme Widgets? Is it Butterfield J? You know what I'm saying? So what you do is you go to Google and you search *domain name, *acmewidgets.com. I guarantee you, you'll pop up a whole bunch of email addresses for that company. And you look at about half a dozen of them and you find, oh, it's first name dot last name. Bingo, I'm just about there. Then you do a Google LinkedIn search trying to find whoever might be an administrator in an area that you think you need to get to. By the way, don't worry that you don't actually get Bob's. If you get Bob's boss, that's okay. If you get Bob's colleague down the hall, that's okay. Send them the email, what will they do? They'll forward it to Bob. They will. Okay? And again, you're being very polite, you're not being a pest. I'm graduating from City College. I've got experience in this. I would love the opportunity to apply to your company and see how I might be able to contribute to it. I've sent you my resume. Great. Bob will get it. All right? That is a secret that most of the chickens don't know, but will put you at the head of the line when you're out there looking for a job. Okay? The other thing that you need to think about, we're talking about communication here, is not only how you're reaching out to communicate with the decision manager, but you need to give some thought to what the internet is communicating about you. when they go out and look on the internet, is the internet telling them the same thing that you're trying to explain to the recruiter? And this is what we call our digital identity, or sometimes our digital persona. You've heard about that? This is becoming really, really important. If I went out and Googled myself or you or somebody else, how much information would we find about people on the internet these days? In some cases, an awful lot. And so one of the first things that we need to do as part of this whole job search thing is do a background check on ourselves. So you know, you come to class and you listen to a professor, there's always homework, isn't there? And here's the old homework assignment. You need to go out and really, really, really investigate yourself. Start with Google and look at every combination and permutation of your name. There are other sites that you can look at that are a bit more sophisticated. One I like is called Spokeo, but there's a number of them. Let me just tell you, Spokeo will try to sell you a subscription. You don't need it. Spokeo goes out and aggregates data from all over the place. They'll show a lot of it to you for free, and they'll tease you with the other data that they've found and try to get you to subscribe. You don't need the subscription because you're not going to have an ongoing deal. You can divine from what they tease you with what data is out there. But go out and find, all right? And what we need to do is make sure that our online persona is consistent with the persona we're trying to communicate. Now, what happens if your boss goes out and starts doing the same thing, and these are the things that pop up? What just happened to your application? It's done. Let me ask you a question. Do hiring managers search applicants online these days? How many of them are doing it, do you think? Estimates are now over 80%. Let me tell you what they're doing in Bowling Green, Kentucky. We have a human resource management program at our school. Those students go out and intern for companies around. Guess what they get to do, a lot of them? This. They do the background checks for them. Man, who better than a tech-savvy college student to ferret out everything about you and you and you? They're amazing at it. And if there's this kind of stuff out there, let me tell you, they're going to find it. And if they drop that on the boss's desk, guess who's not getting an interview? So what we want to do is watch out for that. Did you know that 35% of managers have admitted that they've actually changed a decision they made? They made an offer to a person, the person was all excited, then they were kind of doing the background and due diligence, they find this sort of thing, and they will actually call the person up and rescind the job offer. 35% of hiring managers have done that at least once in the last 2 years. That's crazy, and I don't want this to happen to you. What is the internet communicating about you? Well, there's a few things you can do. If you go out there and you find some stuff and it's not too good, here's some tips. Number one, clean up or restrict things that you can control. If there's bad stuff, delete it. If you've got stuff on Facebook that's somewhat less than professional but you want to hang on to it, put your restrictive settings on, but test, test, test. Zuckerberg and the folks at Facebook make it hard to hide stuff. By definition, a social media site is really only social if everybody's out and sharing. So test, test, test. If there's some stuff on other sites, often an email note to them asking them to remove it will bear some fruit. Google now is being sensitive to this. You can go to Google and you go down to their administrative pages and you can make requests that Google will block certain pages from their search results. It doesn't always work, but it's more options than we had just a few years ago. Well, you know what? In spite of your best efforts, there still might be some stuff out there because, you know, on the internet, things never die. And we periodically in the news hear about people, you know, high school teachers teaching for 10 years, suddenly get fired. Why? Because of the interesting creative ways they used to make money when they were in college, right? Things like that. You don't want to be one of these casualties. So here's my advice. Dilute the bad stuff with good stuff. Dilute the bad stuff. Now, what do I mean by this? The way that search engines work is on the first page, it's always the newest, freshest, most up-to-date content. And as things get older, they fall farther and farther down in the search results. And guess what? The manager's only going to look at the first page or two of search results. So what we want to do is to flood things on the internet with your name so the bad stuff gets diluted down. Now this is going to take some work, but you need to go out and start a blog or 2 or 3. You need to have a Flickr account, a Twitter account, a YouTube account. You need to be posting, and your name needs to be on all of it, and it all needs to be professional. And flood, 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 any kind of social media site that you can do it, and then keep checking. Google will find these, by the way, in a matter of an hour or 2. And eventually you'll find the bad stuff drops down to where it's not gone, but it's largely out of sight. Not your best solution, but it's something that you can control. Okay? Let me talk about the last idea here. Don't want to be late for lunch. Important thing that you need to understand. Where in that whole big job search process, and by the way, folks, it's a process, it's not an event, does the hiring manager typically make the decision that they're going to consider making you an offer or that they don't want to talk to you anymore? Where does that usually take place? It's important to understand this. Where? Right during the interview. In fact, usually it's very quickly during the interview. A lot of my students assume it's when they're reading your resume. It's not true. Resume has one job in life. What's the job of the resume? To get you an interview, period. And then it's generally during the interview when you're presenting and selling, that's when they start saying, yeah, I could see this person fitting into our organization. Or very quickly, no, they're not. Okay? So it's very important to have a good interview. What do most students focus their attention on, though? Writing a better resume or figuring out how to be a better interviewer? Resume. I think there's something about that tangibility of a resume. My students are all very worried about that. It's important to have a good resume, but understand that the real sale takes place during the interview. And really what happens, or what has to happen, is you need to have what I call a good interview. And sometimes that's tricky because you know what? A lot of managers, folks, let me just be honest with you, are not very good interviewers. They didn't major in interviewing when they were in college. It's not something they do most of the time. In fact, a lot of managers feel very uncomfortable interviewing. Trust me. It's kind of a laborious process for some of them. But if you can have a good interview, guess what? You're going to be at the top of that heap. Would you like to learn how to significantly increase the odds that you have a good interview, even though maybe you're not a good interviewer? I'm going to teach you the secret. Okay? We'll wrap up with this. We're going to take advantage of something I like to call the bright, shiny object syndrome. Okay? What we want to do is I don't want to have 2 people who are sitting there, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to say either. Have you ever sat through these interviews and the recruiter starts saying, well, like, and I remember this actually happened to me, if you were a cloud, what shape would you be and why? Right? And when they start asking those questions, you know it's just not going well, right? And there's no way you're going to pull that bacon out of the fire, okay? What they're really looking at when they're talking to you is they're really summing you up. And don't think that it's just the college degree that's going to get you the job. There's certain things that you need to communicate to them. Number 1, you need to show them that you have outstanding communication skills, both verbal and written. You need to be able to show them that you're a good problem solver, a decision maker, that you have a sense of professionalism, that you could fit into the organization, and those things have to come across, or you're never going to get to first base. So what do I mean by this bright, shiny object? We're going to help convince them of those things. Here's what the bright, shiny object looks like. It's called a portfolio. This is one of your best tools possible. What's a portfolio? It's a collection of your work, okay? And it can include everything from your resume to papers that you've written in school, lab activities that you've done, provided you did a good job on them, papers that you've written, projects, descriptions of projects maybe that you had at other jobs, things like that, and you aggregate them all together. Now this is one that one of my students developed, and I'll just tell you, this one's really fancy. What they did is they went to one of those online photo processing stores, and you can make a photo book for about $25, $30. Okay, I don't necessarily recommend it, although it's pretty slick. What I recommend is that you go get one of those 3-ring binders that's called a view binder. They're the ones that are white with the clear cover, and you can put a sheet that's a title sheet on it along the spine. And here's the secret. This is the bright, shiny object. Your name, please. Celeste. Celeste's work history and portfolio is on the spine of that view binder. Now, here's a rule when you're on an interview. This is standard fare. When you sit at a desk, it's common convention that the third of the desk nearest you is yours, and 2/3 closest to the manager is theirs. You may set things on the desk. You should bring extra copies of your resume, something to write on, and guess what you're going to set right there on the desk? The bright, shiny object. Folks, I guarantee you, 8 out of 10 interviewers will not be able to keep their eyes off that, and they're going to ask you something. The ones that are a little more reserved might not say, well, let me see your work portfolio, but they'll start asking you questions like, Celeste, tell me about your work history. And there you go. And now, both of you are looking at actual, tangible evidence of your skills, your abilities, everything else that you've created. How easily could you talk about stuff that you're pointing to and that they're looking at? Do you see how much easier that is? Radically easier. The chances that you will have a positive interview go through the roof. And I can get about half of my students to create these. I get emails from them all the time. Oh my gosh, this is how I got a job. Oh my gosh, game changer for interviews. It's absolute magic. Does it take time to create one? Yes. I also like the 3-ring binder because you can change it. You could get a book done. A few of my students do that. You can't change them once you're done. But just set it right there and it's mojo. Okay? So just kind of by way of review, there's really only one thing to review. We've only got one secret. Folks, Apple Computer got it right with their old ad campaign. You need to think different. And in particular, you need to stand out from the crowd. And we've talked about several different ways that we can do that. Okay? Good stuff. Let me ask a question. In our time together, I know it's been short. Have you got one idea maybe that you might want to take with you and perhaps put into use when you go out on the job market? Excellent. One of my thoughts is if I go to a presentation like this and I get one idea that kind of is a game changer for me, then the time that we spent together was time well spent. And folks, that's absolutely what I believe. It has been such a treat to meet with you guys today. It is absolutely wonderful to be back with college students in my old hometown of San Diego. And folks, I absolutely wish you all the very best as you're wrapping up your college studies. Congratulations to those of you that are graduating soon. Have a great day today and all the best of luck to you guys on your professional endeavors and so forth. And thank you all so very much for coming. And if you've got any questions, I don't know how we're doing on time, but I'd be thrilled to take some. How are we doing?
It's 11. It's 11, but you know, so there will be lunch, as you all know, and the closing keynote, and that starts at 11:45. The keynote, so there'll be time.
Okay, good, good. Well, tell you what. Let's ask if there's any questions. Then, if you do, I've got a couple questions for you guys. Okay, sir. We'll work our way back.
Can you go over the asterisk again for the Google?
Okay, an asterisk is a search term that's called a wild card. A wild card means if you type in an asterisk, and that's a great question, that it'll respond anything. That's what a wild card means. So if you go to Google and you search asterisk at, my domain name is wku.edu, for example, you get all sort of results of web pages at WKU that had the person's email address. And the asterisk means I don't care what their email address is, I'm just looking for the wku.edu. That's that secret. And then what you're really trying to do is to unlock what's the name format for the email. Once you have that, then you're good to go. Then you go out and search the company news sites, press releases and things and try to find the names of the executives and you know what their name format is on email. That's a good question. Ma'am? 30 to 60 seconds. Oh, you want to know about that? Okay. You guys ever wondered about how am I going to do an elevator speech? And it freaks you out, like how do I do this? It freaks most people out. It can be one of your most powerful sales tools. I'm going to give you my hour-long seminar in 30 seconds. Here's how you do it. It's 2 parts. Write it down. Do you know how? ... Do you know how? ... And then underneath that, well, I... ... Okay, let me explain that. Do you know how? ... So what you're doing is you're going around, you're talking to companies. By the way, I really recommend you look up the trade shows and look for industries that you think are not necessarily technical. For example, down in Nashville, Tennessee, just south of me, one of the biggest industries that gobbles up my students is religious publishing. You know all the religious bookstores and gift stores and so forth? All out of Nashville, Tennessee. They can't hire my students fast enough. You think, oh, I'm not going to go to a religious publishing trade show. I would. Okay, so think about that. Okay, here's a, do you know how? So who's in a technology program? I'm going to pick on somebody. We're going to write their elevator speech for them. Who's in computers? Who's studying computers? Something. Volunteer. Okay, what's kind of your thing you like to do in computers? Celeste?
Formatting, learning how to format.
Format, do documents and things like that? Okay, great. Do you know how companies these days are producing a lot of their own marketing materials, printed matter, and documentation? And what you do is you create the problem that your specialty is going to solve. And as long as it's halfway plausible, that's fine. So you heard that. Do you know how companies are increasingly, because of computers and laser printers and so forth, designing and producing their own marketing documents, internal documentation, and so forth? Well, I am an expert at document formatting, creating, processing, etc. I've been studying this for several years at City College. I've got a portfolio of my work that I would love to share with you if you'd like to see it, and I'd love to talk about how maybe I can make a positive contribution to your organization. Click 30 seconds.
I just wanted to know, how do you find out about the trade show?
Okay, trade show. Let me finish that and we'll get into that, okay? Does that make sense? So do you know how? And then you just go ahead and invent, and it doesn't have to be radical, just invent a situation that's plausible but that you know you can solve. Are companies producing more stuff in-house these days because of computer technology instead of sending it out to graphics houses? Yes. It's plausible. And then, and then have a few things. I've got my associate's degree in whatever, graphics design. I'm finishing up my associate's degree at City College. I've been doing this for a number of years. I have a unique ability to help companies really communicate effectively using the written word. Do you have a need for people who can do that in your organization? Why, yes. Here's my business card. Could you talk with my receptionist and maybe we could get together and chat about that? That's how you write an elevator speech. Does that sound easy? Trust me, it is. Most people fret and they don't do it because they don't know how to do it. Do you know how? Well, That help? Good. Sir, you had a question.
Yeah, how do you go about finding the trade show?
Trade shows, okay. You need to know that every city that has a big trade show audience, and San Diego now is a big player in this, has probably a visitors and convention bureau. I don't know what the name of it is, but if you did a search on Google, you'll find it. If you go out to their site, they will list proudly all the companies that are going to hold their, or all the industries that are going to hold their trade shows in San Diego. They don't keep it a secret. The fact that they have a lot coming makes it look like San Diego's a good destination. Sir?
You just Google San Diego Convention Center.
Bingo, and you're in. And it'll list all the shows. If you really want to roll, you could roll up to Anaheim. If there's an industry that you're particularly interested in there in Vegas, it's only 5 hours, and Vegas is just a very fun town if you haven't ever gotten out there. Okay, it's just.
And who do you
okay.
send it to get a
How do you get in? Let me tell you how to get in. At a lot of them, and I know you do a lot of trade shows, so correct me if I'm wrong, half the time, if you just show up in a suit and tie, you can walk in. Half the time. Half the time.
I get in 50% of the time for free, sometimes I've got to pay.
Sometimes you have to pay. I would never pay to get in. What a lot of them will do is they'll let you in the exhibit hall for free, but if they have speakers and so forth, they'll often, for some, charge you for that. But here's what you do. You write an email or even a written letter. Written letter is more powerful to whoever the trade association is or whomever that's putting this together. You can find that from the Convention and Visitors Bureau and simply ask. You can use an argument. You say, I'm a student, I'm interested in this industry, et cetera, et cetera. I would like to attend just the exhibit hall. The exhibit hall really is no cost to them. May I come? They'll send you a ticket in a lot of cases. If they don't, Jeff's super secret, they'll list the companies that are exhibiting. Guess what those companies have that they can give out? Passes. So you call or you write half a dozen of those companies and say, I'm a student, I'm graduating, I'm really interested in this industry, I'd like to learn more. Would you please send me one of your guest passes to go to the exhibit hall? They will flood you with them. If you're just a little persistent, you'll be able to get into 90% of them. And there you are, just like you said, right there going toe-to-toe with the movers and shakers. And what do you need to have with you? There's two things you bring. One is a lot of copies of your resume. Don't bring two, right? And your prepared elevator speech. And what's the format for the elevator speech? Do you know how? Will I? You see how that works? Could you go around and do that? Absolutely you could. That's a great question. Thank you. Other questions?
So for the people who are shy and not very good in communication,
Yes.
sounds like they are not doing their job.
You don't think so? I think communication skills are absolutely critical. And not everybody's really good at it. Could you believe this? Guess what? When I was younger, I was very shy and timid. Would you believe that? That's true. I was an engineer, and I was just shy and so forth. What could you do while you're in college if you recognize that you're kind of quiet and shy? Are there things that you could do in college? Let me just thank you. I strongly recommend public speaking courses or verbal communications courses or Toastmasters. Okay? Really the ability to kind of speak and so forth, and not necessarily to give up on a big stage and give presentations, but just that kind of ability to think and present, because when you're doing that, you're making presentations to the audience of one. And so again, I was really kind of tickled that a lot of you aren't graduating yet. So if there's kind of these weaknesses like you're talking about, you've got some time to maybe boost those up. What if your written communication skills aren't very good? What could you do? Take a particular writing class where they make you write. Oh, I don't want to do a lot of writing. How do you learn to write? Okay, and by the way, you know what I would do if I took a writing class? I would go up to the professor and I would say, I'm working on a professional portfolio that I'm using. I know that we've got a lot of writing assignments in this class. I'm excited about it. Would you allow me to tailor your assignments so that what I'm writing I could put in my professional portfolio? Could I adjust my assignments so that they're more in line with my major? How many English professors will say no? A professor would be thrilled that you're actually interested in the writing class and want to do your assignments maybe tailored to your major. So take writing classes and then ask to develop things that you can put in that portfolio. Very, very, very powerful.
And to increase your digital online presence.
Absolutely.
Do a blog with them.
Absolutely. 2, 3 blogs. I mean, you have a bunch of stuff so that you're out there. And again, all those blogs need to be professional. And again, communicate the same persona that you want to communicate through your resume and so forth. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. I'm going to ask you one more question, and then we're going to get to lunch because it's 11:15. One of the questions my students all say, particularly when I show them that the students are misdressed, what do you do if you need to have several suits and you don't have $250 a piece to get them? Where do you go? Thrift stores. I could never do that. Oh, let me tell you what. Here's Jeff's secret. Okay? Find Goodwill Industries. Now, there are a lot of thrift stores, but Goodwill's really kind of the big one. Find the Goodwills that are near you in the most affluent area near you possible. Why? They collect locally, and a lot of people in affluent areas wear suits. And here's what you're looking for, suits that have never been worn. Look at the neck, look at the collars, the cuffs. I guarantee you, you will find suits, right? At my age, we do this. We buy it thinking, I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to lose weight, right? You're laughing, you know what I'm talking about, right? And so you get the suit a little on the, and then what happens at this age? You don't lose weight, and guess what? They don't wear it, sits in the closet for a couple of years, and eventually they give it to Goodwill. You sometimes will find suits that still have the price tags on them if you shop for them. Now, here's the deal. Will you always find one that's absolutely a perfect fit for you? No. So you need to find, and I absolutely don't like the word tailor. If it's tailored, it costs too much. There are things that are called seamstresses or people that do adjustments. They are very often cottage industries. In the South, where I live, it's generally little old ladies that do this out of their house. They'll have a sign out in front of their house. Alterations, dresses made. You can go in, and I mean, they make that suit look like European cut on you for 20 bucks. All right? When I lived in San Diego, all right, I used to do the same thing, and I would shop at thrift stores. I would go down to Chula Vista. All right, some of the best tailors, seamstresses, adjusters are in the Hispanic community. They're wonderful, wonderful to do business with. And I had several that I worked with that were absolutely fantastic. Okay, so again, you need to kind of ask around. They don't tend to advertise very well. Ask around, find them. All right, but they can take, as long as the suit's not grossly, you know, if I got a suit, the shoulders are way out to here, forget it. But yeah, it's reasonable fit. Man, they can make it look absolutely spectacular on you. Do business with them. Stay and do business locally. All right, it's a wonderful industry, and I like to support the folks that do it. Folks, did you have a good time today? You guys ready for lunch? Thank you all for coming, and I hope you learned something. Have a great day. All right? All right. Hey, thank you. Super.